clinical or simply emotional, its effects can be devastating on a human psyche. In F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, Jay Gatsby finds himself victim to the illusion of love. The narrator, Nick Carraway, observes Jay Gatsby as his obsession with his first love, Daisy Buchanan, takes over his life. Nick is not only narrating the story, but is also Gatsby's closest and arguably only friend. Focused, for the most part, on a memory, this passage echoes Gatsby's inability to deal with the present. He has been forever affected by the siren call of Daisy and is single-minded in his pursuit to win her back. Not only that, but his entire life is wrapped up in this motivation. His name, wealth, reputation, even his mansion are all devices he uses in an attempt to impress her. Even though a life with her is an impossibility, his whole life hinges on this dream. In the end, Gatsby's determination to support reality with the fantasy of marrying Daisy inevitably causes his demise and self-destruction. I stayed late that night. Gatsby asked me to wait till he was free, and I lingered in the garden until the inevitable swimming party had run up, chilled and exalted from the black beach, until the lights were extinguished from the guest rooms overhead. When he came down the steps at last, the skin on his tanned face was drawn unusually back, and his eyes were bright and tired. She didn't like it, he said immediately. Of course she did. She didn't like it. She didn't have a good time. He was silent, and I guess at his unutterable depression. I feel far from her. It's hard to make her understand. You mean about the dance? The dance! He dismissed all dances he had given with a snap of his fingers. Old sport, the dance is unimportant. He wanted nothing less of Daisy than that she should go to Tom and say, "I never loved you." After she had obliterated 4 years with that sentence, they could decide on the more practical measures to be taken. One of them was that, after she was free, they were to go to Louisville and be married from her house, just as if it were 5 years ago. She can't understand. She used to be able to understand. We'd sit for hours. He broke off and began to walk up and down the desolate path of fruit rinds, discarded favors, crushed flowers. I wouldn't ask too much of her, I ventured. You can't repeat the past. You can't repeat the past, he cried incredulously. Of course you can. He looked around him wildly, as if the past were lurking here in the shadow of the house, just beyond the reach of his hand. I'm going to fix everything just the way it was before, he nodded determinedly. She'll see. He talked a lot about the past, and I gathered that he wanted to recover something, some idea of himself perhaps that had gone into loving Daisy. His life had been confused and disordered since then, but if he could once return to a certain starting place and go over it all slowly, he could find out what that thing was. One autumn night, 5 years before, they were walking down the street when the leaves were falling, and they came to a place where there were no trees, and the sidewalk was white with moonlight. They stopped here and turned toward each other. Now it was a cool night, one with the mysterious excitement in it which comes with the 2 changes of the year. The quiet lights of the houses were humming into the darkness, and there was a stir and bustle among the stars. Out of the corner of his eye, Gatsby saw that the blocks of the sidewalks really formed a ladder and mounted to a secret place above the trees. He could climb to it, if he climbed alone. And once there, he could suck on the tap of life, drink down the incomparable milk of wonder. His heart beat faster and faster as Daisy's white face came up to his own. He knew that if he kissed this girl and wed his unutterable visions to her imperishable breath, his mind would never romp again like the mind of God. So he waited, listening for a moment longer to the tuning fork that had been struck upon the star. Then he kissed her. At his lips' touch, she blossomed for him like a flower, and the incarnation was complete. Through all he said, even through his appalling sentimentality, I was reminded of something, an elusive rhythm, a fragment of lost words that I had heard somewhere long ago. For a moment, a phrase tried to take shape in my mouth, and my lips parted like a dumb man's, as if there was something more struggling upon them than a wisp of startled air. But it made no sound, and what I was once reminded of was inconvenient.